Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Touchline Takes. I am here with my co-host, Cameron Reed, and we have a very special episode for you today. We are joined by the general manager of El Paso Locomotives in the USL, Mr. Andrew Forrest. Thank you so much, Andrew, again, for joining us. It really means a lot to us on this podcast where we're trying to highlight, the USL and the other lower divisions here in the United States. And you just taking your time means a lot to us.
No, I appreciate you guys reaching out, and I'm happy to do it. Part of my goal is to help grow the game in the country, especially and specifically at the lower division or non-MLS division, where there's still plenty of great things happening and hundreds of cities across the country. It's not just what's happening in MLS cities. It's the rest of us too, because we're pushing it forward as well.
Totally agree.
Definitely. And I'm going to start off with the hardest question that you're going to be asked today. We're just going to start off right off the top. Andrew, we ask this to everyone who joins us, but what made you get involved with soccer from your playing days to now into the organization at El Paso? What made you sort of fall in love?
Yeah, I'll try to keep this quick. It could be a long story, but I'll try to keep it quick. And then there is a pretty funny stock answer that I've developed. I played soccer growing up. I kind of came to it late at around 11 when 1994 World Cup, when the United States hosted it. I can't tell you that I'd even seen soccer live or on TV before then. Some neighbors got into it. We had some block parties, and I was like, this is really cool. So I kind of started playing and played club. Played high school, played in college in Virginia, and while I was in school, I studied history, and I love history. I loved it then, I love it now, but I always thought that it would work itself out. I didn't really think too far into the future, and I thought maybe I could just be Indiana Jones. That seemed pretty cool. Looked like a lot of fun, pretty girls, cool adventures. Turns out that's not how it goes. It's work in a museum or be a teacher. Or continue to write and maybe become a professor. And that wasn't exactly for me. I was coaching club in high school, doing some teaching right out, at 22, and really, still enjoyed soccer. And I was learning what I didn't like, teaching, and thought that I would go back to school for sports business, which is what I did. I went back to James Madison for graduate school. And this was also, I believe, when did I graduate? 2010 maybe. Yeah, sounds right. And that was right when we were kind of in we were in a fairly major recession. And I can remember, congratulations, class of 2010. We don't need you was like on the Washington Post or something. Oof. And it felt that way because I couldn't get a job, but I was able to connect with a great buddy of mine, Andy Smith, who's also a semi-legend in the soccer business in this country. And we actually played for the same coach at the same college. And he's like, talked to me a couple times. 3 days later, I'm moving to Baltimore with Crystal Palace Baltimore. Worked for them. You'll also notice that there's a lot of the teams I worked for in the graveyard, unfortunately. But started bouncing around there. Worked with Michael Hitchcock quite a bit, and really, the love for soccer has always been there and will always be there. But I was able to mesh that with the business side, which I very much enjoy, and that's where my forte is. Titles are different at different clubs, and general manager may be a touch misleading to some. I'm not looking at players. I'm not watching second division Chilean soccer. I'm not doing that. That's not my area. The business side, but at the same time, I'd like to think I can answer your technical questions about our team as well. And stops in Minneapolis, in Edmonton. Where else did I? Greensboro, San Antonio for the bulk of the time with the Scorpions and in the NASL. And then, quick couple years as in the college world, and now been here a little over 3.5 years, and it's probably the quick version of how I got here and why I'm still sitting here. So,
no, thank you very much. That's incredible to hear, sort of your short version of your journey through everything. And you mentioned the business side. I know this past year with the pandemic, it's been difficult, especially, probably for some clubs in the USL. How has El Paso sort of managed to kind of, weave their way in between the pandemic and still continue this success they saw last year into this season as well?
I think there's a couple common denominators for us. We have unbelievable ownership group that gives us the tools and resources to, run our team at the highest level. And I think the other person that deserves a lot of credit is Mark Lowry, our head coach and technical director, for putting together. I actually tell this story quite a bit. We started as a new team in 2019, which was a regular normal year. Last year was obviously difficult, but nonetheless, still difficult in life, but also difficult on the field. There's a lot of good teams. But I think even though we were a brand new team in our first year and our second year, the success we had was not completely out of left field. While these were El Paso Locomotives' first year, this was not anybody's first year of walking on this planet. We had we have players, Richy Ryan, Yuma, for example, who have had storied
journeyman
careers, that
been
have
everywhere.
spanned, 15, 16, 17 years for some of these guys. Not the first time they'd stepped on a soccer field. So while our team was new in the sense that, as Locomotive was new, our team was not a bunch of 17-year-olds that we just found out of the park. Like, this was a crafted team intentionally done by Mark Lowry, and he's done an absolute continues to do a masterful job.
Hey, Andrew, can I just actually jump in for a second? Because you mentioned Richy Ryan, and I just want to mention, you talk about experience. This guy's been at Antwerp, Sunderland, Sligo Rovers, Dundee United, Ottawa Fury. You're totally spot on with that. Like, I read that list, and that was my immediate thought was they got the right guy for a captain. He's got all the experience. And
Yuma has similar experience as well. And these guys have been able to translate that. And I think they've been able to help cultivate, because we do have younger guys on our team that are still starting their careers. And these guys have been unbelievable mentors to these young players. That there's the business that needs to get taken care of on the field as a player, but there's also the locker room stuff. There's the travel part. You need to be a professional when you're at the grocery store. Talking to the media. These guys have played an integral part to 17-year-old Diego Luna, who's playing very well for us, has a bright future. But literally, Richy and Yuma could be his father and are twice his age plus. So it's great to see guys that are at the end of the year that don't have to do that. There's not in their contract. They don't have to care like that. But we have a team of guys that absolutely care about the next generation in El Paso, but just the next generation of soccer players in general. If you ever watch, and it's tough on the broadcast, but if you ever look at the end of a game, Richy is almost always on the field talking to somebody from the other team well past when everyone else has gone into the locker room. And I always notice that some of the older guys talking to other players, probably because they're friends, but these guys have great reputations and other people that they know want to catch up with them.
And, we're talking about the players, but one kind of constant that I've also noticed about the club is that it seems like you have a very passionate ownership group, and one that I would say saw a hole in the market as well. I mean, we're talking about what your metro region is about 1.5 million people. And then if you include Juarez, that's another 2.5 million people. Could you talk to us about the ownership group a little bit and sort of their commitment? And I know they also have some other ventures. So if you want to include any of those connections, that would be excellent.
Yeah. I think our ownership group is unique, and I'll get to part of the uniqueness here in a second. But I think our owners they're unbelievable people. There's two major ownership groups. It's the Hunts and the Fosters. And these people saw a void in the community. This wasn't necessarily they wanted to be sports teams owners. That was a big, huge goal. That was what they always wanted to do in their lives. What they saw was an opportunity for economic development for the city and quality of life initiatives for the city, for the people. This is for the community of El Paso, Las Cruces, Juarez, the Borderplex region that we call it. This is not about, I want to be sitting in the box, drinking my mint julep and have everybody come kiss my ring. That is not why they do it. They do this for all the altruistic, correct reasons that you would hope somebody would do something. These people could be retired. They could be living in any wonderful place in the world, but they live day to day and operate here, and they continue to do the right things for the community and help help El Paso move forward, which is so admirable in so many ways. And again, the reason that they brought the Chihuahuas here was they saw a massive need. This is a city of, as you mentioned, I think it's 850,000 proper plus as you get out into the surrounding communities. And we don't have anything. I mean, UTEP's here, and that's mid-level D1. But why does El Paso, which is a pretty major mid-American city, doesn't have anything else? And they brought It's coming on about 9 years. They announced the Chihuahuas, which is a AAA baseball team and has been one of the most successful minor league baseball teams of all time in terms of almost everything.
Yeah.
And then, they diversified, and there was an opportunity to bring USL Soccer, which was what they did, I believe, announced in 2018. And they also have a stake in, both groups have a stake in FC Juárez, the Bravos of Liga MX, and they started that as a second division team. And due to various different things, we're able to bring that to the first division of Mexico, which is a very respected and a very high level league, as you guys are well aware. And they've been in there for a tournament or two, and they're trying to get that thing where it needs to be. But they just hired Tuca Ferretti, I believe, who's a big time coach who was at Monterrey. I'm sorry, was at Tigres for a long, long time, interim coach for Mexico. So it's all about raising the profile of Juarez is very similar to El Paso, often overlooked in Mexico. Probably has people have some preconceptions that are not completely true, and just like El Paso does. And what we're trying to change that narrative and bring people in. We want, when teams come here, we want them to go back to their respective markets and be like, man, that's not what I expected, and that was pretty cool. That they have a nice little downtown, et cetera, et cetera. And we're trying to beat that drum really, really hard.
Yeah, you were recognized as the best game day experience. Is that correct?
That in our first year we the ballpark has won many awards across baseball, various different things. We're a LEED certified building in terms of going green and doing initiatives that are sustainable energy sources. So we've worked really hard. We've got a great staff. We've got an unbelievable staff that works here. Specifically, Taylor Miller, who leads the initiatives on the game day presentation, and I'm not going to apologize that we won that, and I'm proud of that. She did an excellent job. Our organization did an excellent job, and it's always, of course, with anything, it's wonderful to be recognized by your peers for working really hard. So we try to do the best we can, and always find ways to improve and get better and make that game day experience a memorable one.
Now, we see a lot across the USL, and you kind of touched upon it, that community, where these USL clubs are. How important is it to kind of build that relationship between the club and the community, between the players and the community, especially within El Paso?
I think it's important here, just like it's important in any city, MLS on down, any city with a pro sports team. It's wildly important. I don't know that you can be successful, and we've probably, I could probably point to some of my teams in the past, that weren't successful because we were unable to engage the community at a high level. That's what this is about, especially and specifically for us here, is to bring something, bring these, be on the world stage or the national stage with cities like Phoenix or Tampa or Indianapolis that are always in the news. San Diego. I mean, think about all the teams in our league. Well, now you got to talk about El Paso too. And we beat you. And we went to the conference finals. So get to know us, because we're not going anywhere type thing.
Right.
And again, we're unapologetically moving forward in that way. We're not bullies, we're not jerks. We want to treat everybody well, but we want to beat you when we're playing you on the field, and that's been the goal. And we've had again, credit to the players, of course, and to the coaching staff and under Mark. We've been very fortunate and to have some very good teams. So
it sounds almost like the organization has that like chip on their shoulder that like they're determined to get that respect from the sort of ownership level to the management level to the players themselves.
And that's I'm not from El Paso. Most of our players, we have some local guys, of course. We've got guys from all over the world. I think it's a way of life. It's an El Paso. Something that I've learned is that a lot of times El Paso is overlooked, and that's not fair. And we're here just like members of the community that go to live in other cities. We're determined to show you that this is a great American city, and we would, if you give us an open mind and a shot, we can certainly prove that to you. And I think that's a great characteristic of our team that extends all the way down. Is maybe we're not Louisville with the brand new stadium, or we don't have this, that, or the other thing.
Right.
But we're here to compete, and if you notice, we don't always win a ton of individual awards, teams of the weeks, this, that, or the other, and that's okay. We're a team. We want to have 10 guys each score 5 goals. Like, that's okay. That still gets us to where we need to be.
That seems like exactly what's happening this season as well. You know,
Yes.
for those who don't know, El Paso doesn't lose, at least this year. 3 wins, 3 draws, 2 games in hand, I believe, on the top of the table. So a chance at being solely in first. So I think you guys are definitely proving that, you know, you're here to win. 2 Western Conference finals as well. But that's not all you're doing. You know, you're not just fielding a professional team. Could you talk to us a little bit about what it's been like developing the youth program as well? And it's a robust youth program from what I've seen.
Yeah, it's a talent-rich area for soccer, and has been for quite some time. And there are a lot of kids. You know, we obviously feel that we have an obligation to, you know, whether maybe it's not stated in the charter or something like it might be in other leagues, but we think we have an obligation to help develop and help give the best opportunities to the kids of El Paso. And you know, we're just crazy enough to start a 17-team youth soccer club in the middle of a pandemic. You know, a lot went into it, and Bob Bigby leads that charge and is great at that. But we started that last fall, and we've had some great success. We actually just had Austin FC leave town with 2 teams. They came all the way here to play us, which we think is a great sign of respect from them, to come here and want to play us, because they see us as a quality opponent, and we have the utmost respect for that group to come out here and do that. And you know, we've been trying to showcase, because this community has lost a lot of talent, which is you know, rightfully so. These kids are trying to do the best thing for themselves. To go to Salt Lake City, I believe there's actually, for the Monarchs, the 2nd division team, they have a 16-year-old El Pasoan starting at center back right now. We've had kids go to Austin. We've had kids go to Dallas, to San Antonio. And what we wanted to do is, you know, provide multiple tiers. You know, if you're more of a recreational player or just want to do it for fun, we've got programs for that. But if you're a high-level player that wants to maybe find that pathway to pro, or maybe play in college, or, you know, somewhere in between, we want to be able to give those opportunities to be seen and showcased, just like all the other MLS Next or DA, former DA, ECNL, you know, all those premier tournaments. We sent kids to Dallas and Denver recently. Multiple teams won their age groups. So, you know, I'd like to take credit for the development, but we just know that there's a ton of kids here that want to play, and we want to try to nurture that and grow that, and give any kid that wants an opportunity to interact with our club that exact opportunity. Yeah,
and you've integrated. I mean, you've got a coaching staff with experience. I was really combing through, and I noticed, you know, experience from Atlas of Liga MX, FC Dallas, and Chivas as well. So, you know, you're not. I think the sort of stereotypical coaching experience growing up in the United States used to be just, you know, somebody's dad that, you know, might have picked up a copy of How to Coach Soccer at his local library and then went down and just told you to run after the ball and kick it. But it's nice to see an approach where, you know, we're finally seeing coaches with real pedigree who are really taking this seriously and bringing that to youth development.
Yeah, and that's you know, there's 5 or 6 A licenses across town, and we have all of them but one, and the one we don't have is the UTEP women's head coach, and her husband is in our club. So we've looked for talent. We've tried to find talent. We also try to nurture again that talent and encourage these guys to get their, you know, their official licensing and coaching badges, as it were. We've got some guys that just went through and got their B licenses, which is a big deal, and we want to formalize it. We want to compete with LA, with New York. We want to compete with everybody that's in front of us on every level, and we want the best people that we can get, because we know that there's a ton of talent here, and it's our job as, you know, as the adults, as the coaches, to help bring them along, to get the most out of them, and they can get the most out of themselves. And again, as we've seen, I know I'm a product of it. Soccer, you know, playing college soccer taught me a lot of the things that I've applied to, you know, my professional life. You know, wasn't always the best, but I definitely worked hard, and those are characteristics, and there's plenty of them that you know, I'm sure everyone listening can think about the things that they've learned in sports, and how they've applied those and have make them a better person, a better friend, a better business professional, all those things. And I think that these kids, whether they know it at the time or not, they'll draw upon these later on in life.
No, definitely. And you talk about, you know, that wanting to compete, and players want to compete too. And I think, too often you see people, either pundits or people who are experts think that, USL level players can't translate to an MLS level. And I think you're really starting to see that stereotype disappearing. Your goalkeeper who you just had went on a quick loan to the Portland Timbers, and he proved that he can compete at that level. Are you starting to see a little bit more movement where people are realizing that these USL, players can compete with, the MLS?
Yeah, and I'm not saying this in an incendiary bomb drop, but I think MLS is looking around a bit more and saying there's some quality down there, and maybe we don't know everybody that we think can compete at this level. Yeah, Logan Ketterer went on about a month was with Portland Timbers, had 2 shutouts and got a little bit beat up down there in Philadelphia, but he stepped in immediately with guys he didn't know in a system that he hasn't been as familiar with, and was able to compete. He came back, it's almost unbelievable to say, but more confident, more assertive. I think he learned a lot up there, and they were very interested in keeping an eye on him to make, we'll see what happens. But I think there's, last year, was it 2019? Chapa, Luis Herrera, local player, went on trial with LAFC. With Carlos Vela, they were looking around. He fits a certain mold of player physically that they were looking for, and ultimately he came back. But to get that opportunity to go there, and I think you look around the league, there's the probably MLS frontrunner goal of the year by Rubio. That guy was playing in San Diego last year. I mean, John went from Phoenix to Atlanta. There's a lot of Cody Mizell to New York City. The Pasher went to Houston. I think there's a lot of guys that MLS is like, that's not bad. That guy could help us win. And I think I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but I think we'd love to step on a field when U.S. Open Cup's around or able to start again and play Dallas, Houston, or whoever, because we think we can compete. And I think a lot of teams at the USL level can compete, and on any given day can beat MLS teams on a fraction of the budget. And I think that's important. The distance between is rapidly closing, in my opinion.
Agreed. Yeah, no, there's a lot of change taking place in the USL, and they're trying a lot of things. As you mentioned, the US Soccer stopped the development academy. USL has their own academy structure now. I see that you guys are going to have a both girls and boys side. But I did want to ask on that topic, the USL also did just announce the USL W League, kind of bringing it back, I guess. They did have the W League folded. Now they're bringing it back. Do you guys have any intentions to start a W League team as well? I mean, I know it's not easy to just come on and say something like that if it's going to take some planning, but I just wanted to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, it's absolutely something that we are talking about and are considering. I don't know that we're necessarily – part of my joke is we're barely got this. We definitely don't have this first team thing done, and adding the youth soccer component at a very 17 teams plus all these programs is a lot. But it's absolutely something that we're looking at, planning for, and considering. I don't know that we'll be necessarily in there in year one, but I think it's something that, again, as we our value system of giving opportunities to the kids in El Paso, that obviously needs to include girls. So I think I know it's something that we've been talking about and something that we will certainly consider as time goes by. But at the moment, we don't necessarily have a plan to come in at the beginning, but rest assured it's being considered. And nothing would surprise me that we would have a team in there in short order.
Definitely. And we talk about sort of, the USL closing that gap between MLS. And if this isn't something you can speak on or don't want to speak on, it's okay. But the MLS announcing their trying to set up a lower division system, just maybe what are your thoughts about that and sort of, how that maybe could impact the USL?
I'll probably give you the sanitized version.
Okay.
A bit.
We'll take anything we can get.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's interesting, and it's probably for most teams, again, not having ever worked for an MLS team and on the outside looking in on that, it appears that most MLS teams it's developmental. And this is probably a bit of a higher level than most teams are prepared for. Now, when if you have an off week for Sporting Kansas City and you want to drop 9 guys back down to, it looks different because you can get a result, but, it seems more developmental. And I think to have teams like to develop that way, since that seems to be the common strategy, it makes sense for them to kind of do their own thing. And maybe, again, from what I'm hearing, I don't know, it looks like they're going to try to come in at 3rd division, akin to USL League 1, which seems like a very appropriate place for them to be. And as they develop, or as that develops, it could develop into other things, but I think that's a better spot for them. And this is not a hot take in any stretch. We want to win championships.
Right.
They want to, if they can develop 2 guys for the first team, that's a great year. That is an unbelievable year. And if, look, Real Salt Lake or Real Monarchs won it in 2019, and they've done both. They won a championship and have developed 5-6 guys off that team that regularly contribute to the first team. And that is, and I think they're doing it at the highest level in that model, personally. But I think a lot of these MLS teams seem to be about development, and that is totally okay.
Right.
It just, sometimes they get, in certain games, you can see that they get lost against teams that are trying to win games.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most realistic answer. I think there's been a lot of speculation, and it's really too hard to tell. We don't have enough to go off of, but I think where you're leaning towards seems to be probably the most accurate answer, that they've been working towards having some sort of a reserve league, it seems like, for a little bit of time. And USL, it also seems, has been trying to push the 2 teams down, or at least, giving them the option of moving down to League One. So yeah, I think that's a good answer. Yeah. Probably also a safe answer for now as well.
And that's, it seems, based on everyone's goals. Again, I can't speak for any other team, but what it looks like is that seems a better spot. And if they want to do their own thing, certainly their prerogative, and see where it develops. In 3 years, we could be having wildly different conversations, because God knows where it can go.
Right.
Definitely.
Well, I also wanted to ask. So we've talked a little bit about this, but I'm wondering if maybe there's more you'd like to talk about between the connection with your club and FC Juárez. Maybe not even necessarily the direct connection between the 2 clubs, but from what I've seen, people are able to pretty much just go right across the border and go catch a game at either city these days. What kind of community have you seen grow between the 2 clubs?
Yeah, it's if we're gonna kind of talk before COVID, and certainly we're hopefully on the back end of COVID, when things open up a bit more. The border's been pretty restricted in the last 14, 16 months. But assuming that opens up soon and everybody's safe, there is a ton of interaction between probably most specifically fans that live in El Paso, that routinely, I've walked across and gone to at this point 12, 15 different games. It's the stadium is right there. With their move, they were always well supported at second division, but since they've obviously made the move to MX, they are that is a sold out venue at all times. It's a hard ticket to get, and when you bring in some of the biggest teams on this continent, like America and Chivas and others, it's a big draw for those teams to come to Juarez and play. And I think it's great. It's great for this community, because all of a sudden you've got a team operating in what I think is one of the top leagues in the world, in Liga MX, and then you've got us, who's a very good team in our league for the first 2 and counting into 3 years. We've done, knock on wood, we don't implode or anything. We've done very well as well. And I think all of a sudden, that almost out of nowhere in the last 3-4 years, this market, this Borderflex region, has suddenly got 2 very successful, very high-end teams. Again, with bringing different, Indy was just in town. I keep mentioning them, and Vegas and Phoenix and San Antonio and Austin, and other cities that are nationally known or internationally known. Well, they got to come to El Paso, and you got to do that thing. So we're helping raise our profile nationally as well, and showing our fans that, oh, okay, this isn't like, we're not just playing the team that across town or something. This isn't glorified men's league soccer. These are pro guys that have some. You look in their stories, like you mentioned with Richy, some pretty impressive. I mean, Richy played in the EPL for maybe a game or two. Like Yuma was in La Liga for a little bit. Like you know that same league that Messi's in. You know that league.
No.
It's like I mean I know I'm saying facetiously, but Yuma was in that league. That's pretty cool. Like so and we've got guys. There's guys down in for Bravos that have played in the national team. And that national team is no slouch, certainly. So it's a wonderful thing. There's a bounty of great soccer opportunities in this area right now.
Yeah, so I was going to ask actually, has having Rio Grande Valley, has that pushed you guys at all, or what kind of relationship do you have between that club?
With RGV?
Yeah.
I would say an acrimonious, no. It's interesting because it's, if you look at San Diego, Tijuana, you look at RGV and the Monterey, state of Monterey, it's very similar to us, but they are not like us in the sense that our two cities, if you didn't know that there was a river and some fencing, we literally are right next to each other. There's a little bit of distance, some miles in between. This is I think one of the most uniquely situated clubs with similar ownership in the world. Yes, does Man City own 6 different teams across the world? Of course they do. Does the Red Bulls group? Of course they do. Atletico in Spain, yeah. But does anybody own 2 teams that literally sit a mile apart from each other?
Right.
No. It gives us some really unique, I think, advantages that no one else that I'm aware of, at least on the planet, it has. We've got a couple guys on loan every year. We've as they made the jump up, there were some guys that couldn't quite make the Liga MX team. Well, now Adair Borelli is starting left back for us, and Leandro Carrillo has scored some big time. I mean, he was Bravo's all-time leading goal scorer. He's scored some major goals for us as well in his short time here. So we're able to get our youth stuff. I won't go too into depth, but we're able to do so much with their youth, and I think the youth is at the youth levels where we're going to be able to do the most things once we come completely out of COVID to be able to interact almost maybe on a weekly, daily basis with different things. Sharing of players, opportunities for different groups because the opportunities they have versus the opportunities we have. I think it's a little cliche, but the sky's the limit, and we've not dug anywhere close to the bottom of what could happen between our two groups. And I think it's a international story that's just waiting to be told once those next steps are taken.
Yeah, no, I think it's so interesting because you're mentioning like they're minutes away from each other, but it's two different countries, 2 different levels of play. And you have 2 like major opportunities for so many different players. Like, I mean, it's really interesting that you mentioned, players coming from Juarez, coming to El Paso, and they're getting a chance now to play for El Paso. And who knows, maybe down the road, they end up back in Juarez playing in Liga MXs.
And I think that alludes to something you were talking about earlier. They don't have to leave home now. They've got all of those opportunities right here. It's
unbelievable. And it's for both cities, for Juarez and for us. I mean, now all of a sudden, they've got their youth system that plays on the day before. They go on all the road trips with the first team, and they play congruently or consistently with whoever the first team's playing. And that's that. Again, was that happening 5 years ago? No. The come up on both of these groups it's been fast and it's been mighty in a sense. And again, we sit here 5 years from now. I think there's going to be you're going to look back and be like, man, we talked 5 years ago. I hope it's sooner than that. But man, look at all the stuff that's happened from when we talked the first time to when we talk, in the future. Hell, I'll even say a year from now, I bet we've got some major things that we've done that have happened. And I think it's just so exciting. And that's what I love. And I meant to mention this earlier. That's why I love second division sports, because it teaches you so much about all different aspects of the business. If I don't think I'd be sitting in this chair talking to you guys if I hadn't done operations and ticket sales and printing the tickets and using the computer systems. And sad to say, at one point I was our graphic designer way back 10 years ago and doing clip art, trying to get the word out for Crystal Palace, Baltimore. Like, if you just went into a silo with an MLS team or a first division team, all I would know is one thing. I'd probably be pretty good at it, but I'd only know one. I love getting to know a part of everything. And I think that's that's why second division sports are so great. And to see teams, like FC Cincinnati or that just blew the doors off and they were rewarded for it. I think that's very cool because they worked very hard. They weren't just given anything, and their community responded. And I think that's doesn't always happen like that, certainly, but there's a lot of teams in this league, Albuquerque, San Antonio, ourselves, and Phoenix, and many others that we're doing really well. We're off to a good start in our little our communities.
Well, as we've said, as we've talked about, you're a busy guy, so we don't want to take too much more of your time. But I did have one more question for you. Kind of a little more lighthearted news story that came out this week, and also something that just kind of goes back to the how there's so much opportunity to be had in lower league soccer here. How are you feeling about Jamey Vardy becoming a co-owner of Rochester Rhinos? Isn't that a crazy story?
Yeah, I was not expecting that. But here's what I think it is. Here's what I think it means in a bigger picture. It means that soccer in this country at the second division level, of course, you've got Beckham, but we've got, I think it's Hazard and Demba Ba with a I can't keep up with it, Nisa or something team. What I think this really means is that there's a lot of interest from around the world on what's happening with American soccer. And that, to me, Jamey Vardy in Rochester, I can't imagine there's any connection I don't know what the connection could be to Rochester for a guy that's been on the world stage for a decade. But he's interested. He sees potential. He sees growth opportunities. Certainly, Rochester has a storied past in this country of really epic, portions. And they've been dormant for a little while, but to get a spokesperson like that, or to have DeMarcus Beasley want to bring a team to his city of Fort Wayne, Indiana, which it's a weird city to pick, but let's go with it. To see Landon in his hometown of San Diego, this could be, you see a lot of pro athletes, even you see NBA. I can't remember who did what, but who just bought into DC United? Mark Ingram, NFL player. Kevin Durant's somebody's bought into Philadelphia. I think it's so cool to see these NBA or EPL or whatever.
Yeah, you got Marshawn Lynch and Oakland Roots. Yeah,
exactly. They want in, and they're okay to come in at a second division or third division level because they see the potential, and they're not wrong, in my opinion. They are not wrong. Don't know if all these will hit. Of course, time will tell. But they're not wrong to get excited about American soccer. I think, and watching, it's been disheartening as an American soccer fan on the men's side. The last 6 years, I think we've underachieved in a big way, but I was so encouraged for the first time in a long time with our performance against Mexico, and the fact that a lot of these kids are 25, 26, or significantly younger. Looking at a very young Weah and Gio Reyna, and even Pulisic is not very old. It's promising, and I think the world may be like, okay, if we can start to do this consistently now. I mean, hell, we had on the field at one point, we had a Chelsea player, a Man City player, and a Barcelona player. I mean, when has that ever happened? Obviously, the answer is never.
Even 5 years ago, I would have been shocked to see that.
No, I never would have imagined seeing that, and especially one that's a Champions League winner too.
Exactly.
And it just blows my mind to see the development, with American players. And I think the development even more so within the US, from the second division, from those lower divisions, it just feels like it's exploded in the last 5 years.
Absolutely. And I mean, this country is huge, and I think it's still going and it's not just it's a roller coaster right now, kind of escalation, and it's exciting, and that's why I love being here, because it changes so much, and it's different day to day, and whatever little this kind of might be unintentionally a great way to wrap this up. I think it's important for what we're trying to do here is do our little part for American soccer, for worldwide soccer, to continue to take it to heights, because it's still on its way up, and I think that's definitely to be a part of that is just, for lack of a better term, it's just so cool. And if we can, I'd love to sit here or look back in 15 years and see some kid on the national team like these guys now from El Paso, came through this club, or whatever the case may be, would be that would make this all very worth it.
For sure. It'd be like the cherry on top of the cake to,
Absolutely.
see all the hard work and, all, the growing and
It'd be the train coming into the station, if you will.
Exactly.
It's hard work, but I'd say, at the same time, it's fun work. We
Definitely
love doing this, and everybody in this office, speaks for everyone in our organization, has the passion to push this forward. And that's what it's all about is, we're relentlessly moving forward. Just, that's part of our name, Locomotives. They don't go backwards. They only go forward. So that's what we're trying to do.
You were holding on to that one.
Oh, yeah. You waited right until the end to just drop it. I saw you making notes over there, and you're writing it down. And...
Where's my microphone? I'll just drop it.
Yeah.
You should have got up from your chair and just walked right
just
on.
left.
Pull a George Costanza and just say, leave on top. I'm out. No, that's I think it's just really important to hammer those points home. And again, this is happening in hundreds of cities across the country. We're not the only ones doing it. And, that's the beauty of the USL is, we'll go at it with everybody on the field, but I'm also calling those guys during the week saying, I saw this. What did you do? How did you do that? How did it work? How can we replicate? Because it's imperative that we all do it together, or we will all fail together, unfortunately.
Definitely. Well, Andrew, I thank you so much again for joining us. To all you who have listened, definitely be sure to follow what's going on down in El Paso, because there is a lot of good stuff going on down there right now. You just listened to it all, and there's even more. The best is yet to come. And so we are really excited to see all the movement. Andrew, thank you. Of course, Cameron, as always, thank you too. If you guys like this podcast, obviously follow us on Twitter at Touchline Takes. Email us touchlinetakes@gmail.com.
Follow El Paso Locomotive.
Exactly.
Watch them on ESPN Plus.
Exactly. And that's, just the being able to see all the games now has been so awesome. So, we're really happy to be able to tune in every weekend to El Paso or, any other club in the USL or lower divisions.
Yep. No, appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for having me on, and happy to come back whenever you need us. We appreciate you.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks again.